Hello, John.
Hello, Oliver.
So we're going to talk about the Latin Rite Mass, if you want to go ahead there.
Yes, the Latin Rite Mass was celebrated when I was young in Boycounter Common, and it was celebrated up to my late 20s, 30s when I worked in Dublin. And for some couple of years, I had an apartment in Rathmines, sharing. And when I say an apartment, it would be a big room. You didn't have all the mod cons that they have now. You just had the basics, and I haven't described these places as luxury. But they were more luxury than the man in the moon. And they'd have a bit of carpet, but it had seen better days. But suffice to say, it was nice to get out of bed without having to get onto a stone floor and get freezing to death, especially in the winter. So the Latin Rite Mass was celebrated in the big church in Rathmines and in Rathgar, and it would be packed. If you didn't get in 10 minutes or so before the Mass started, you wouldn't get sitting. You'd have to stand at the side, and people used to have to stand at the side. Well, we were young, so it wouldn't be too much, but you would like to sit down because the Mass was celebrated in Latin, so the priest faced the tabernacle, and he also then got up in the pulpit and gave a sermon. It wasn't called homilies or any of this modern secular type of stuff. A sermon, and he wasn't just trying to kind of frighten you, but it was always very uplifting. And the whole celebration of the thing, and when you're young, you generally might notice this, but if you do notice it in retrospect, when you consider the way it is deteriorated today. Vatican II, which happened in 1962, or thereabouts, 62 I think it was, in one or two countries where people were poor, they were allowed to use their native language because they mightn't be able to afford a missal, which you had when you were doing the Latin Rite. You didn't have to be wealthy. I had a missal, and it would obviously supplied by my father, and so you could follow the Mass. And not alone could you follow the Mass in this country, but any part of the world where there was Catholic Mass, it'd be the same, and you'd be able to follow it in Latin, even if the priest then might be giving a sermon in the language, but at least you could follow the Mass, and that's the important thing. So that was it was called the universal, in my time, it was called the universal language of the Catholic faith, so that priests could converse with one another in Latin. It was a dead language, but it could be spoken as well. I did Latin in my secondary school education, which I don't think now is done only in very rare cases. But I did Latin and got honours in Latin in the intercert, and got nearly honours in the leaving cert, and French, and that kind of thing. So foreign languages was included, but the Latin was so important. And so the Latin Rite Mass, as I say, churches were packed. Not alone churches were packed, but confessions was packed as well on Saturdays. In the afternoon, mostly young people who would be going to confession, and there'd be 2 or 3 priests holding confession. There was that many going. And then on Saturday from 7 to about 9, there'd be 2, 3 or 4 priests holding confessions. And there'd be hundreds. And there'd be queues at every confession box. So this is something that no person that's hasn't that experience would know anything about. In some cases, they're not hearing confessions in the confession box, they're standing gawking at you. And that's not what we don't want. I don't like that, and I won't go to anybody of that calibre. I want a little thing to go across and say make my confession. And that's the way it was. So the bishops and those that should know better, shepherds, started going down the road that wasn't intended in Vatican II. Quite the reverse. The Latin Rite was considered to be always the proper way to get mass. But they went down another road, whether they didn't want they wanted an easier life or what, I don't know. You never come across a priest in those times also that wasn't wearing the clerical garb. You never come across a nun that wasn't wearing the clerical garb. So you knew who they were and you saluted them. Same as a policeman was wearing the uniform of a police. You recognised them and they were very well respected. But after Vatican II, all the vocations, there was plenty of vocations to the Holy Priesthood also, and the religious life. The religious sisters, the Sisters of Mercy, the charities, the Sisters of Charity, all those ones provided the hospitals. The Mater Misericordia, which is the Mater, that's what is the full title, that was the Sisters of Mercy. And it was a great hospital. And the St. Vincent's Hospital was in St. Stephen's Green when I was young. And the reason was people didn't have cars, so that they could get to the bus to it. And my brother, Lord Mercy, he got an operation in St. Vincent's Hospital when he was young, in Stephen's Green. And then they got a bigger site out in Ballsbridge and Merrion Road and built a good hospital and provided the facilities for the people to go there, and they had great equipment and all the rest of it. But now it's going to be, and the maternity hospital was in Hollis Street and the Rotunda for the north side, and the Rotunda Hospital. And Hollis Street was for the south side, and I was born there. And there's me when I was a little baby. I was the first born. When I was a little baby, my mother is holding me, and
that's your mother, is it?
Yeah, that's my mother holding me, and that's my grandmother on the Malone side.
Your grandmother seems to be a very tall lady.
She is, yeah, and she was a very nice lady. Well, my mother is sitting. Don't know what she's sitting on, because this is, I think, outside, and that's my grandmother. So I was born in 1938, and she died. The grandmother, she died before her time. She wasn't even 60. She was in her late 50s. She died in the year 1940. So I was one of the lucky ones to be. And I think there was another photograph where the granny was holding me as well. And there you are. That's me. And I think I had some hair, so that's me when I come into the world. And here's another one, just to show you. There's where am I? There's me here. That's me cousin Eddie Vaughan. Because it was Vaughan's. Mm-hmm. And that's my brother Donald. And we all have braces. No such thing as belts them times.
Oh, wow, kids wearing braces. That's something you don't see today.
Exactly. And that was in the late 40s. And,
but is that because was there a shortage of belts or what?
No, it was just that the belts, we didn't wear bloody belts. It was braces. Okay. And there you are. We don't look as if we're suffering from anxiety.
You look like very happy children without Facebook and without all the rest.
I don't know where he come from, because he must have been visiting. Now, whether his father was in England or what, where they went, I don't know. But you can see that was taken outside Thunders. Like, we know all the houses. This is Holt. So there's me here, and we're all wearing braces. So this is a bit of history in some ways that you don't see nowadays. Mm-hmm. You don't see one smiling. But I think you want to just prod them to make them smile. Stick a pin in them.
I don't think it would make them smile. It might make them jump now. You know? Anyways, we have done a lot of videos today, John Malone, so we're going to retire down to the sunshine.
Correct, and we're finished there. So we've spoken about Kilkenny. What a marvellous city.
I just want to ask you before we finish up. You have a picture there which I've never seen before of. It's a silver picture.
Oh yes. This silver picture, but this is very important.
So I see.
This is the Shroud of Turin.
Okay.
It's in Clonard, in County Westmeath, the Clonard Monastery. There's a famous monastery there, and that's on the wall. It's the replica of the shroud that you're in, and you can see a vague outline of our Saviour in it.
For anybody who doesn't know what the shroud is, can you explain
The
it?
shroud that you're in, it's what, when our Saviour was crucified and he was laid in the tomb, a garment
Was placed on his head.
Yeah,
his face.
and a photographer that was able to use some technique photographed it, and this is where you can see the outline of our Saviour in it. It's in it there. I don't know whether you can see it or not, but that's it, and it's in Clonard, and that was a monastery there, St. Finian's Church, and there's up in the wall, and there's various saints, including Saint Eunan and Saint Finian. He was a monk and a teacher. That's known as the 12 Irish Apostles.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Clonard. I have all their names, but I won't go into it now. I'll go into it another day.
Yeah, we covered them before, I remember.
And there's myself and my late wife. We're in Lough. It's there in Boyle, County Roscommon.
Let's hold it up there because we can't see it. Okay.
And Boyle, County Roscommon. We're on Lough, which is known as the Killarney of the West.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Boyle was known as the
Lough
Killarney of the West.
Killarney, Killarney of the West.
Correct.
So it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And, where is it, John? Lough?
Lough, and we're going out to Castle Island. It was McDermott's castle before it was plundered off them by the invader.
Mm-hmm.
And there it is, and we're rowing out to Castle Island, and I'm well able to row, and because Judy insisted on rowing, and I said,
go on, you're okay. That's just somebody drilling next door. We'll continue.
If you lose an oar, I says to her, we'll be going around in circles, because she was well able to row. She saw what I was doing. She was able to pick things up.
He was.
So she rowed. What's it?